Hello and welcome to Living Sickle Smart with Sickle Cell Foundation of Minnesota. I am Ray Blaylark and I am the Executive Director and President of Sickle Cell Foundation of Minnesota. And I'm so pleased to be hosting this series in order to bring you the information and education that is most meaningful to you as members of the community. We have a really special guest today, and we will get to our guest in one moment. But first, I really want to make sure that you all are aware of all that we are doing around sickle cell and Living Sickle Smart in our series. And so we first want to make sure that we say thank you to our partners and sponsors who help us to bring this series to you with Be the Match, Bluebird Bio, and Novartis. We are excited because there are several sessions in this series. In September, we focused on sickle cell disease, a public health emergency, as we talked about the CDC Sickle Cell Surveillance Project. Throughout the month of October, we are talking about disease-modifying therapies and curative therapies, making informed decisions, and we are hearing from expert providers in the field of sickle cell disease and curative therapies, as well as pharmaceutical companies and representatives that tell us a lot more about who they are and what they do for and with the sickle cell community. In November, we'll be talking about planning for your future and making informed decisions around transition. And then in December, smiling through the pain, how pain can impact mental and emotional health. Now, all of these sessions will be available on our YouTube channel. You can certainly reach many of them through our website, but it's going to take you back to our YouTube channel anyway. So we have a link here, or you can just simply search Sickle Cell Foundation of Minnesota when you get to YouTube. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I want to introduce you to a very special person whom I am just meeting, but I am excited to hear from, and that is Miss Keely Gilroy. Keely is the Medical Director of Rare Genetic Diseases at Agios Pharmaceuticals, and she is going to be talking to us today about Agios's new sickle cell disease drug development program and how Agios is building their program to support the needs of the sickle cell community. Exciting, right? They see us, they recognize us, and that we may have some of the same needs and some unique needs. So without further ado, Keely, I'm gonna turn the controls over to you, and I will join at the end, and we'll have a little chat at the end of your presentation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ray. Let me just share my screen. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to be here with you today. So thank you so much for the invitation, and I'm really enjoying getting to know you too. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the sickle cell program that we're developing at Agios. And we're really still at the early stages right now and still listening and from you and learning from you. But I just want to say, as I begin, it has been such an incredible privilege to have the opportunity to work with such a beautiful and vibrant community. We're learning so much, and we're really looking forward to continue to partner with you and learn more from you. So this is my disclaimer that I'm going to be talking about mitapivat, which is a medicine that we're studying for the potential treatment of sickle cell disease. It's not yet approved in any country for any use. So at Agios, we're committed to applying our scientific expertise specifically in the field of cellular metabolism, with the hopes of transforming ultimately the lives of patients with genetically defined diseases, particularly sickle cell disease. And we approach everything that we do with the mindset of where science meets heart. So what that means in action is that we start everything we do with partnership and understanding. So it's very important that we partner with you from very early on to understand what's important to you so that ultimately we can hopefully bring forward change that's meaningful to you. So The medicine that we're studying as a potential treatment for sickle cell disease works through a mechanism called PK activation. And this is a rather complex slide. I'm really not going to talk through all of this right now. I just put this here, first of all, to say that we're really excited to be initiating our clinical trial program in sickle cell disease. And we're very committed to bringing this medication forward in sickle cell. We are seen as the experts in the scientific community in this mechanism, in PK activation. So we've been studying it longer than anybody. We've actually been studying it for 7 years now in clinical trials. So in addition to sickle cell and other hemolytic anemias as well. So although we're just now getting started in sickle cell, we can take that experience that we have in other disease areas like pyruvate kinase activity and take the learnings from that and use that experience to build an even more thoughtful and well-designed clinical trial program for sickle cell disease, all the while with Warriors with the seat at the table helping us to design this program. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. So this is just a little bit about how we got into sickle cell. And it all goes back to Dr. Sui Lei Thien, who's the chief of the sickle cell branch at the National Institutes of Health. So she came to us a couple of years ago, and she was really excited about potentially studying mitapivat as a transformative treatment for people with sickle cell, as you can see that from her quote here. And so it was really at her urging that we ultimately moved forward in opening a small collaborative phase 1 trial with her. So this phase 1 study is run out of the NIH, and she's the lead investigator on the study. And so this is the first time that we ever studied mitapivat in patients specifically with sickle cell. And there were about 20 patients in the study. And on the left panel, you can see an example of one patient. So we were looking at the effect of mitapivat on hemoglobin, and that's what we're looking at here. The green line is showing hemoglobin over time. And you can see that with each increasing dose of the medication shown by the red arrows, the hemoglobin went up really quite nicely. And so although these results were early and from a very small study, they were very encouraging to us and gave us the confidence that we needed and the proof of concept, as we call it, as we needed to move forward now with larger clinical trials. So we've been getting to know the community over the last year and trying to understand what's important to you and what you need and what we can do to partner with you. And one of the things that we've heard loud and clear is that you want to be empowered with knowledge and empowered with information, scientific information about how different medications may work in sickle cell disease. And so I'm going to walk through with you now a few slides that explain how we believe mitapivat may work in sickle cell. And I just have to say thank you to Lisa Rose from the community, who spent quite a bit of time working with us to help us figure out the best way to explain this somewhat complicated mechanism to patients and came up with the concepts and some of the ideas. And also to the dozen or so other warriors from across the globe, really, who gave us feedback and input along the way. So this is just another disclaimer that I'm going to be talking about mitapivat again, and this is intended really only for educational purposes and not as medical advice. So to understand how we think mitapivat may work in sickle cell, we have to spend some time talking about the red blood cells. And the red blood cells, like really any other cell in your body, need energy to do their jobs. So in the case of the red blood cells, they need energy to be able to carry oxygen to the body's tissues, as well as to be able to repair themselves when they become damaged and stay hydrated. So where does this energy come from? If we take a look inside of a red blood cell, you can almost imagine that every red blood cell has its own little energy factory that it uses to manufacture all the energy that it needs. So making energy, this process is called glycolysis. And there's a number of steps that happen along the way, but overall it starts with glucose that we get from the food that we eat, and it ends in the production of energy. And the type of energy that the red blood cells use and other cells in the body is called ATP. So the end product of this is ATP energy. So we're going to take a closer look at some of the different steps in this energy factory right now to better understand how mitapivat may work. So the first step I've already mentioned starts with glucose, and you can see that shown here kind of on the left side of the slide in the little hopper. And then in a series of steps, glucose is then processed into a number of different ingredients that are ultimately used to manufacture energy. So one of the key ingredients that we're going to talk about is called 2,3-DPG. And you can see that here being made kind of on the conveyor belt by the stamper. In addition to ingredients that are used to manufacture the energy, there are also helpers in the process to help move the process along. These are called enzymes. And one of the most important helper enzymes in glycolysis, or the energy factory, is called PKR. So here we're showing PKR as the man driving the little forklift, helping to move along the energy ingredients. And at the end of this process then results in the manufacture of ATP energy. And if everything's working smoothly and efficiently, the energy output will be high and the cell will have everything that it needs to support all of its different functions. So let's talk about what happens in sickle red blood cells now. So in sickle cell disease, red blood cells have a much shorter lifespan, partially due to all the damage that's caused to them by the sickling. However, at the same time, they actually need more ATP energy to be able to repair the damage that's being caused to them from the sickling. However, in sickle cell, as it turns out, PKR, the helper enzyme, may not work as efficiently as it should be. And so when PKR is not working efficiently, not moving fast enough, this can cause a buildup of some of the energy ingredients. So here you can see 2,3-DPG on the left starting to pile up. And this is problematic because, as it turns out, high levels of 2,3-DPG can actually cause cells to sickle more. And so that exacerbates the whole process. Now, in addition to that, we talked about how the sickle red blood cells need more energy to be able to repair themselves from the damage that's being caused by the sickling. But because PKR isn't moving as efficiently, it's not able to meet this increased demand. And so this results in less energy production than is needed for the cells to be able to repair themselves. And so that leads to premature cell death, which ultimately leads to lower hemoglobin or anemia. So what do we think mitapivat's going to do then for this process? So Agios is studying whether mitapivat may be able to improve the health, energy, and lifespan of red blood cells in sickle cell disease. And if you look on the left here, you can see those little floating white pills. And that's to remind me to tell you that it is a pill that we're studying. So it would be taken twice daily, which is how we're studying it right now in clinical trials. So mitapivat works by activating PKR, the helper enzyme, and making it work more efficiently. So we've shown it here as almost this fuel tank that's been added on to the side of the PKR forklift. So when it activates PKR and makes it work more efficiently, this leads to a decrease of that 2,3-DPG buildup that we talked about, the energy ingredient. And we think that that may help to reduce red blood cell sickling. And it also leads to an increase in the overall amount of ATP energy that's produced. And this, in turn, we believe can help support the red blood cells' ability to repair themselves, as well as support their hydration, which ultimately may increase their lifespan and improve anemia. So just to summarize, then we think there's really potentially two effects of mitapivat: one, to reduce red blood cell sickling, and two, to support red blood cell lifespan, which would ultimately lead to an increase in hemoglobin. So that's a little bit about how we think mitapivat may work. Where are we going next? Well, based on the encouraging results we saw from this smaller NIH study, we're now really excited to be starting up a phase 2 and 3 program. So it's going to start with a phase 2 trial, and you can see the kind of the design down here. And the phase 2 study, the goal of that will be to determine the best dose of mitapivat in sickle cell. So this study is designed to, it's going to be evaluating hemoglobin as kind of the primary measure or the endpoint of the trial. So after that trial, then we'll choose the best dose, and then we'll move forward into a phase 3 study. So this is a bigger study. which will last for approximately 1 year. And this is going to be designed, or is designed, to assess both the effect on hemoglobin as well as the effect on pain events. So everybody who completes either of these trials then will have the opportunity to continue to receive mitapivat for free as part of an extension study for up to approximately 5 years. And I also want to mention that both of these trials, importantly, are designed to, in addition to test if it works, also to make sure that it's safe as well. So safety evaluation is a very important part of this program. So to participate in the trials, these are designed for patients who are 16 years of age or older with 2 to 10 pain crises in the past 12 months and hemoglobin between 5.5 and 10.5. And importantly, treatment with hydroxyurea is allowed in this study, as we understand that that's a very important cornerstone of therapy for many patients. So and at this point, I really want to acknowledge the input from all of the warriors that helped to actively shape this trial. So we worked with warriors on this trial design, and they gave us a lot of important feedback, one of which they encouraged us to make the enrollment criteria as broad as possible to reduce barriers to study participation. So some of the things we did based on their feedback was to make the lower hemoglobin limits even lower than we had originally planned, as well as allowing concomitant use of hydroxyurea. They also encouraged us to study endpoints that were meaningful to the community. And we heard loud and clear that pain and hemoglobin were 2 of the most important endpoints. And so we included those in our trial, as well as patient-reported outcomes. And finally, they also told us it was really important to try to make participation in the study as convenient and as flexible as possible. So we're looking at every way that we can to do that. Some of the things that we've done are things like incorporating the option for home visits or telemedicine appointments whenever possible, visits where laboratory tests aren't needed. And we're also assessing options to do things like compensate individuals for loss of pay due to time off work for study clinic visits. So I just, again, want to say thank you so much to the warriors who worked with us on this and really helped us to improve this trial design and tailor it to the specific needs of the community. So with that, I'm going to stop there. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. We are at the very early stages, again, of our program. And so we're still working on our plans. And we would love to hear from you if you have ideas, not just related to the trial, but anything else that you would like to see us do with respect to the community. Please reach out and let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, I want to stop with I thought it would be nice to end on a poem from Blaze Eppinger, who is a warrior who's brought a lot of inspiration to us as a company. And so I thought it would be nice to share and hope that it brings you inspiration as well.
Hello, my name is Blaze Eppinger, and now I'll recite for you a poem that I wrote about sickle cell and my life battling it, as I have sickle cell disease, hemoglobin SS. I live with the pain that doctors will never see. To live, I need blood from strangers I'll never meet. Not saved by Superman or a thunderous God, but by someone that has a family and a regular job. I'm in ICU with the tube for breathing and one for food. Can't get excited or too down, I'm keeping an even mood. Cause I live my life free, but still inside of a cell. Hoping for an appeal, hoping that I excel. My cell's breaking down, but seriously I could tell. I was built for the rain, catch it all like a well. And I done made it thus far, through the worst pain, even through the rough parts. Doctors used to say 30 years would never come. But every year on my birthday, I celebrate another one. Thank you.
Just wow, like those words, just taking them in as the mother of a young adult living with sickle cell disease, and watching his journey of 25 years and working in the multiple capacities that I've had the honor to work with families. His words ring true in so many ways. And so thank you for sharing that, Keely. The science behind the work you are doing is extraordinary. And it's, you know, I think that like this is the first time I'm hearing some of the details even about your clinical trial. So I'm processing all of this science that we really have not looked at before, or that has not been commonly discussed before, like energy, the energy that it takes for a cell to operate optimally, what charges a cell and what drains a cell, right? In the most simplistic of terms. But in understanding, you know, metabolism, energy, how that energy is used up, cellular metabolism. I think that it's always interesting, and I think it's important to note that by the time a science reaches clinical trials, it has been in research and study mode for many years. And early on, you mentioned that for the last 7 years, you all have been studying this PK activation, right? And you've seen it, how it works in other disease states, and how what you've learned from that kind of crosses over into sickle cell disease. So I really want to highlight that, because as much as it might be new to those of us hearing it for the first time, doesn't mean that the science or the study of that science is new. And I think that that's important for a community to understand when it comes to, you know, research and development of any new products or of any new understanding of medicine and the healthcare that goes with it. When you speak about energy, I think one of my main questions is, you know, we talk about fatigue in the community. And so are we talking about physical energy? Like, are we looking at potential ways that this can also address, you know, fatigue, which is a major complaint in sickle cell disease?
Yes, yeah, that's a really important outcome to evaluate as well. And we know that that's really important and impactful on patients' lives. So although we're talking about, I think, the energy in the cell and not so much the physical energy of the person as a whole, we do hope, and we have reason to believe, that if we improve the energy in the red blood cell, that will lead to improved energy overall, by increasing the survival of the red blood cells, by improving anemia, by improving, you know, ultimately the delivery of oxygen to tissues. Overall, that should, or hopefully will, improve energy. And so that is one of the things that we will also be measuring in our clinical trials, and part of the patient-reported outcomes that I mentioned as well. Part of those outcomes will be asking patients about how they're feeling and how are their energy levels, how is their fatigue. And so we would hope ultimately that will translate into an improvement in that area as well.
That's awesome. One of the things that I've understood along the way in my own journey is, you know, a new drug or treatment for sickle cell, you know, may be focused on or what we call an endpoint, or what you all call an endpoint of study. But it doesn't mean that there aren't other benefits that may not have been an endpoint, but really are the trickle-down effect of the value of the medication and improving the overall well-being of the person. And many of the complications, though it might not be specifically what was studied, we still see a benefit there. So I kind of just wanted to pull that out because, you know, particularly for our, you know, young warriors who are getting through school or trying to maintain a job, that energy is so important. And then it's also so clear that you work with the community in the way that you, you know, created your clinical trials, because you touched on, you know, some of the barriers that keep individuals from being able people to enroll in studies. So, you know, lowering that hemoglobin, right? We know that there's a number of people who, for various reasons, have that lower hemoglobin, and so many studies are created for a higher starting hemoglobin. So, you know, thank you for being attentive to that. And then, of course, hydroxyurea. My being able to approach new options as not an either or, but an and, right? And they operate differently. One of the things that we've seen in the past is that, you know, when these new treatments hit the market, is it set up in a way that individuals who are already on hydroxyurea can keep taking that in order for their insurance to, you know, kind of say, yes, we'll approve this? So the fact that it's included in the studies, do you think that that will help or assist in the approval process for insurance because you are including that as part of your clinical trials?
Yeah, so that's would be the goal, right? So by including it in our clinical trials, that data will then go to the FDA when it's ultimately, hopefully, approved. And then we would hope it would be part of what we call the indication. So how it's been approved for use, so that people can, because it's a very, what we call complementary mechanism, people can add it on to hydroxyurea if the physicians think that there might be a benefit to that. So yeah, that's the goal. And actually the patients in the phase 1, the NIH trial I showed you, actually the majority of them were on HV therapy as well, as part of that study.
Excellent, excellent. And can you just state one more time, if a person is interested in joining your clinical trial, do they have to be in a particular state? And how would they proceed with signing up if they were interested?
Yeah, so the best way right now is to go to clinicaltrials.gov. You can search for mitapivat and see all the studies that are ongoing. So there's a posting right now for the phase 2/3 study. We hope to open our first site later this year. And as that happens, it will start to update to show where open sites are. We're opening several sites across the US, as well as across the globe. Really, this is going to be, I think, one of the largest reaching trials with respect from a country perspective that we've ever done. We're a small company, so it's challenging, but I mean, we're excited to make it happen. And so that would be the best way, though, to check clinicaltrials.gov or to reach out to email Agios to our medical information department as well. And I can provide you with that email.
Excellent, excellent. So I love the fact that you included real pictures of real warriors, right? To be able to look and see ourselves and the graphics. I think that they really honored the community, the importance of seeing ourselves in this work and seeing the difference that is made when there is that level of visibility is profound. And so thank you all for paying attention to the big details and the small details. It's evident in how you are creating this program. And we look forward in the state of Minnesota to continuing to work with Agios on their drug development program. We look forward to making sure that our sickle cell communities through not just in Minnesota, but throughout the world and has access to opportunities like this. And so, Keely, I just want to thank you so very much for joining us today. I am going to remind you all once again of our Living Sickle Smart series that we will be continuing throughout the month of October. We are in October now. Wow. And then in November and December, we will have continued, we'll have continued sessions in the series. So join us. You can learn more at sicklecellmn.org/living-sickle-smart, or you can view our sessions at our YouTube channel. You can go to YouTube and search for Sickle Cell Foundation of Minnesota. Keely, thank you for joining us. We look forward to all of the updates. Once again, that's clinicaltrials.gov, and you can look up more information about this and other clinical trials that you may be eligible for. Remember, we are all one community, whether you are a patient, a caregiver, whether you are a researcher, whether you are a provider, whether you work in the pharmaceutical industry, working with individuals diagnosed with sickle cell disease. We are one community, all trying to make our world better for individuals and communities impacted by sickle cell disease. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.